Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling Bram Stoker's Dracula, and we've got quite a collection for this one.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. We've got Jonathan Harker's journal, of course, but also Mina's diaries, letters, and even, get this, some old phonograph recordings from Dr. Seward.
Wow.
It's like assembling a literary puzzle, wouldn't you say? And to help us sift through all these chilling clues, we have our resident expert on all things Gothic and Victorian.
It's a pleasure to be here, ready to, really dissect those anxieties lurking beneath the surface of Stoker's masterpiece.
From page 1 of Jonathan Harker's journal, I was hooked. But it's interesting, those early descriptions of Transylvania, the food, the mountains, even the train timetables, it's almost mundane.
Right.
Until it's not.
Exactly.
What's Stoker doing with all this detail, at least at the start, in your view?
I think he's carefully constructing two worlds right from the start.
Oh, interesting.
On one hand, you have Jonathan Harker, our very practical solicitor, representing, that industrial, rational, Victorian mindset.
Right.
And then he steps off that train into Transylvania, a land seemingly untouched by time, a place where superstition reigns.
And it's that clash, isn't it?
It is. That clash between modernity and the ancient, the rational and the superstitious, That's what Stoker uses to unsettle both Jonathan and the reader.
He does it so subtly. Like, 1 minute Jonathan's describing a peasant kneeling before a roadside shrine, and then in the same breath, he's complaining about missing his English mustard.
Yes. It's that contrast, that juxtaposition that makes the horror hit even harder.
Absolutely.
And, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Stoker was writing during a time of immense societal change in England. Industrialization, scientific advancements, a more diverse population.
Right.
All of this was challenging traditional Victorian values.
And those anxieties, that fear of the unknown, of the other, it's woven into the very fabric of Dracula.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of the other for a moment. Because while Jonathan's journey to Transylvania, it's fascinating, right?
Yes.
But we also have Mina back in England. And she represents a very different kind of change happening in Victorian society. She's incredibly capable, fiercely intelligent, even teaching herself shorthand to be even more helpful to her fiancé.
She's the embodiment of the new woman emerging in the late Victorian era, educated, independent, and really pushing against those societal expectations. And yet Stoker uses her dear friend Lucy to explore the anxieties surrounding these changing roles.
Lucy's illness. That's where the true horror starts to creep in, I think.
It's fascinating how Stoker uses Lucy's decline to play on very specific Victorian fears. Remember those descriptions of her sleepwalking? The exhaustion, the strange marks on her neck? These seemingly supernatural symptoms also mirrored real-life Victorian illnesses, particularly consumption, which back then was often seen as this mysterious wasting disease, especially affecting young women.
Exactly. By blurring the lines between the medical and the supernatural, Stoker taps into those deep-seated fears about female vulnerability and the fragility of Victorian society itself. And remember, those anxieties weren't just about illness, but about shifting social norms. Lucy's flirtatious nature, her talk of wanting 3 husbands, this challenged Victorian ideals of feminine decorum, adding another layer to the horror of her transformation.
So we got Lucy, this representation of both the allure and the supposed threat of the new woman, and she falls prey to this ancient, almost primal evil. Makes you think about, what Dracula really represents. I mean, beyond just a blood-sucking monster, right?
Precisely. He embodies, he's a potent symbol, really, for a whole host of Victorian anxieties. He's a foreigner, first of all, arrives in England with his strange customs, that thirst for power.
Yeah.
He's a tangible manifestation of those anxieties around immigration and the changing face of English society.
And then there's that connection to disease we were talking about earlier. Dracula spreads his curse through blood.
Just like illnesses, think syphilis, for instance, were spreading through Victorian society.
Often silently and with devastating effects.
And remember how those diseases often, how they disproportionately affected marginalized communities, fueling prejudice and fear. Stoker taps into those anxieties, makes Dracula a symbol of the unseen forces that could corrupt and destroy from within. But it goes even deeper than that. Think about the way Dracula preys on young women, Lucy in particular.
Right.
There's a clear element of sexual transgression there, which would have been incredibly unsettling to Victorian readers.
Right. And then you have those weird sisters, those seductive but terrifying female vampires in the castle.
Exactly. They challenge those traditional Victorian gender roles. These women aren't just victims, no. They're powerful, predatory figures who revel in their sexuality. They defy male control. It's both alluring and incredibly threatening, especially in the context of, Victorian anxieties about female emancipation.
So Dracula isn't just a monster. He's like this lightning rod for all these cultural anxieties. Xenophobia, the fear of disease, anxieties about female sexuality. It's brilliant how Stoker weaves those fears into this gripping Gothic tale. But how do our heroes even begin to fight back against something so deeply rooted in the societal psyche? Enter Van Helsing, right?
Right.
He's like this force of nature, ready to take on Dracula with garlic and crucifixes.
Van Helsing he represents folklore and superstition. A stark contrast to the more modern scientific approaches of characters like Dr. Seward, yet both approaches have their limitations when confronting Dracula.
It's almost like Stoker is suggesting that defeating such an insidious evil requires more than just science or superstition alone.
Exactly. It requires understanding. Remember how Van Helsing, he immerses himself in Dracula's world, studies folklore, anticipates the Count's moves. He recognizes that to defeat a monster, you must first understand the darkness it represents.
So it's about knowledge as a weapon, and not just for Van Helsing. The entire narrative structure of Dracula, with its journals and letters and recordings, it's like Stoker wants us, the readers, to piece together the clues alongside these characters.
It's participatory horror at its finest. We're not just passively consuming a story, we're actively engaged in unraveling this mystery, which makes that climax all the more impactful.
That chase to Dracula's castle, talk about a wild ride. Boats, trains, horses. They even chase him down with a team of sleighs through those snowy Carpathian mountains.
It's a testament to how determined they are to defeat this evil, no matter the cost. And that final confrontation, the imagery is just so striking. Dracula lying in his coffin, surrounded by that Transylvanian earth, clinging to those last vestiges of his power.
And Mina stepping into that protective circle of holy wafers, those vampire brides unable to touch her. It's such a powerful image of resilience, of faith triumphing over darkness.
And yet there's a bittersweet undercurrent to that victory. Because even though they destroy Dracula, Mina is left forever changed by his mark. It's this reminder that trauma, even when confronted and overcome, can leave lasting scars.
It's that lingering shadow that gets me, Even though Dracula is gone, vanquished, sunlight and stakes through the heart, there's this sense that Mina will never be entirely free.
Right.
It's like that line from her journal. How does it go? There are mysteries which men can only guess at, which age by age they may solve only in part.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Stoker seems to be saying that some darkness stays with us, even when the immediate threat is gone.
That's the insidious nature of it, of trauma, of evil, right? It can leave an imprint even when we fight back, even when we win. But there's another layer to that lingering darkness, wouldn't you say? It's not just that we're haunted by what Dracula represents, it's that we're also strangely drawn to it.
Oh, absolutely. Think about Jonathan's encounters with those vampire brides. He's terrified, obviously, but there's also this fascination there, a pull towards the forbidden.
Exactly, and that's what makes the vampire myth so potent, so enduring, really.
Yeah.
It speaks to something primal, wouldn't you say? That simultaneous repulsion and attraction to the unknown, to the things that scare us and seduce us all at once.
They represent power, immortality, freedom from all those societal constraints, things that, maybe things we secretly crave even if we'd never admit it.
Precisely. And Stoker, he doesn't shy away from that duality. He makes it clear that line between victim and monster, between fear and desire, it can be terrifyingly thin.
Which brings us back to Mina. She's marked by Dracula. But she also shows this incredible resilience. She uses her intelligence, her courage, to fight back against that darkness.
She does.
It's a powerful message, wouldn't you say? That even when we're touched by evil, we still have the capacity for good, for strength.
Absolutely. And that's the enduring legacy of Dracula, I think. It's not just a horror story. It's a testament to the human spirit, isn't it?
Right.
Our ability to confront our fears, to overcome even the most insidious forms of evil.
And to learn from those encounters.
Yes. To emerge stronger, even if forever changed.
It makes you think about the Draculas in our own lives, doesn't it? Those fears, those anxieties that threaten to consume us. Maybe it's a fear of failure, fear of illness, fear of the unknown. We all have our own monsters to confront.
Indeed we do. But just like those brave souls in Dracula, we don't face them alone. We have each other. we have knowledge, and we have the enduring power of stories like this one to remind us that even in the darkest nights, dawn will eventually come.
What a thought to end on. It's been a true pleasure dissecting this Gothic masterpiece with you. Thank you for guiding us through the shadows and shedding light on the enduring power of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. May you always find the courage to face your own darkness and emerge into the light, stronger and wiser for the encounter.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create within ourselves. This has been The Deep Dive.